Hi, my name is Andy, and today we are going to assemble the new Strong Series rower. It's a very easy machine to assemble. It shouldn't take more than 30 to 60 minutes, and it includes all the tools you need. And you can actually do it as one person, so I'm going to assemble the rower myself today. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to unpack the rower, so we're going to fast forward this portion. Okay, so we have laid out all the parts here on our Aviron mat. I do recommend you use some sort of mat so that you can protect your floors just in case you damage it while assembling the rower or scratch your floor while assembling the rower. So like I mentioned earlier, the rower includes all the tools you need, which is only 3 tools. You only need a wrench, a Phillips screwdriver, and 1 Allen key. All the screws and bolts are in a bag, and there's only 3 different types of screws, so it's not that complicated. Quite easy to put together. And obviously we have our manual here. So I'm going to follow the manual. I remember most of it by heart, but I might be referring to it as we go along. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove this red tag here that's holding this belt. So I'm going to remove the tag, and then now I can actually just throw this out. So then in the first step of the manual, it says to put the front leg of the rower on top of the rower. So the front leg is actually this large piece here. And I'm just going to lift this over top. So I've already put the frame of the rower on the ground in this position, which is the upright position. And then I'm just going to put this front leg over top of it. And then I'm going to align the 4 holes on this front leg with the circles or the little screw holes here. And then I'm going to use the F2 screws to secure the front leg into the holes that say F2. So I'm actually going to cheat. I'm going to use a power screwdriver because it's going to save me a bit of time. So let me just plug that in here. I'm going to screw these in halfway so I can get all 4 of these bolts in first, and then I'll tighten them. So you're going to make sure these F2 screws that we're using, they're a little bit shorter. So there's only 2 different types of bolts that we're using, so it's not hard. It's very hard to mix up. And in addition to the bolt, I also added the washer on here as well. And now that those are tightened, I'm actually going to use the hand Allen key and just tighten it a little bit more to make sure it's very secure. And that's the first step. Okay, I was getting a little hot with that sweater, so I just took off my sweater. All right, so that was step 1. Step 2, I'm pretty sure, is to attach the plastic part that goes on top of here, which is where you actually place your phone. So that piece looks like this. I'm just going to slide it right over top, like so. And these are secured using the F3 little screws. So there's little screws with the Phillips head. So you can use this little screwdriver. But once again, I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to get it done a little faster by using a power screwdriver. And that's it for step 2. All right, on to step 3 is now the rail. So I'm going to bring the rail out in front of me like this so that you can see it. Now the rail had some of these little plastic parts in it for shipping that I already removed. So these you can chuck away into the garbage or store it for in case you got to move. And then now I'm going to take this and I'm going to turn it upside down. And at the base here, this is where I'm going to attach the rear leg. So this is the rear leg, and we're just going to put it on top. Don't worry about putting it on backwards. There's only one way to put it on, where you get exposed to the 2 screw holes. And just like before, we're going to use the F2 screws, which are these shorter ones that we added earlier for the front legs. And I'm just going to screw these on. And just like before, I'm going to hand tighten it with the Allen key to make sure it's nice and secure. Perfect. And that's step 3. So step 4 is now we're going to attach this onto the main rower. So what we need to do is we need to actually angle this onto its nose. So we're going to actually put it straight down like so. I can actually take my handlebar now and put it onto the handlebar holder. And now that it's standing vertical, I'm going to take my rail and I'm just going to slide it in over top. You might need to do a little bit of wiggling to get it to sit on top, but once it's in, it's in. And then just like before, we're going to use 4 of these F2 bolts again, and that's what you'll need to secure them, secure the rail to the rower. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2 of them go to the bottom, and 2 of them to the other side. And just like before, I'm going to use the Allen key to ensure everything is nice and tight. Okay, perfect. And that's step 4. So step 5 is actually removing this little bar at the bottom. So we attach this bar just to secure it while you're shipping it to make sure nothing breaks. So this is actually removable, and we can actually throw that out. So I'm just going to loosen them up with the Allen key. I can just use my fingers and unscrew them. 1, and 2. And now there's a little hole at the bottom. So we're going to use this next little plastic piece that comes inside your, inside the little box. I think this is part E. And I'm just going to pop it into place here at the bottom. And it'll just snap into place. And that's step 6. So step 7 I've already done was those little red pieces that I mentioned earlier. They kind of fit up inside like this to hold this in place. I've already removed these, so that's step 7. Step 8 is now attaching the seat onto the rail. So this is the seat. It already has 4 bolts attached to it. These bolts are slightly different lengths than the other bolts, and that's why they're attached to the seat. So I'm going to unscrew them using my hand. Now I'm just going to line it up here and then screw them in. Don't worry about putting the seat upside down. It can only fit on one way. So I'm going to hand screw them with my fingers as tight as I can, and then I'll use the Allen key to further secure it. And that's step 8. So the next step is attaching pieces K and L. Which are these 2 pieces here, onto the sides of the seat. Once they're on, you just use use 3 screws for each side, 6 screws total to secure these into place. And those are these little tiny screws. I'm going to screw 1 into each side just so it doesn't fall off. almost done. Step 10. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to lay the rower down now. So I'm just going to move some of these tools out of the way. And our last 4 bolts. And I'm just going to lift this and pull it down. Perfect. So the last piece is actually the foot carriage. So this is the foot carriage. All you're going to do is just slide this on top, and you'll see there's 4 remaining holes. And then we're going to use the 4 remaining bolts to secure them into place. And if you're having trouble getting the bolts in, you can actually turn the crank on this to make the foot pedals a little bit wider, which will give you a little bit more room. And my mistake, I forgot one of these washers. So I'm just going to take this back out. And I'm going to tighten it with the Allen key. Perfect. And that's step 10. And the last step is now just putting the screen onto the rower. So you'll need your Allen key and the wrench that we included. So I'm actually going to unpack the screen now. So inside the screen box is going to be a little box like this. This is actually the power cord to power on the rower. And this is the screen. So I'm going to remove the bag. I'm actually going to keep this film onto the screen so that I don't scratch it or anything. So the last step is attaching the screen to the rower. So on the rower, there's already a bolt and a nut on the bracket arm. So I'm actually just going to unscrew that. Here's a little nut. Here's the bolt. I'm going to keep that in my pocket for now. And then I have my screen here. I'm going to rest the screen onto my leg since I'm doing this by myself. And at the back of the screen, you'll notice that there's 2 wires. There's one that's blue, which carries the data, and there's one that's green that carries the power for the screen and the rower. And there's the same combination of wires on the rower as well. And then you just match blue with blue and green with green. So we're going to go green with green first. You're going to notice you're going to have to turn it a little bit, but once you find the connection, it should just snap into place. And then there's a ring that you can turn, which will tighten these 2 connections together to make sure they're secure. Same thing with the blue side. I'm going to turn this until I find that they click together. Here you go. And then I'm going to turn this ring, and that secures it. And now I'm going to try to push some of these wires into the bracket arm. And I'm going to press the rest of these wires into the rower itself, or into the screen. And then once I do that, I can push the screen onto the rower. Then I just need to line up all these holes. And in my pocket, I have the bolt. And I'm just going to slide that through. Might take a little bit of finessing, but it should be able to slide through. And then on the other side, I'll take this little bolt and I'll secure it to the other end. And now we just use our Allen key and the wrench that's provided, and we secure everything so that they're pretty tight. You don't want it to be too loose, because if it's too loose, then the screen is just going to dangle like this. So what you want is you want to make it a little bit tighter. Yeah, it's pretty tight now. And now you'll notice when I angle the screen, it'll stay in place. And I'm actually going to tighten it just a little bit more. And you should be able to rotate your screen left and right as well. If you find that's a little bit too tight, you just can loosen or tighten the bolt on top of here, and that'll make that motion a little bit easier as well. So I'm going to loosen this a little bit because it's a little bit tight for me. There you go, just a tiny bit. And now it's nice and smooth, and that's it. And the final step is plugging in the rower. So I'm going to remove the power adapter out from the box and the power cord. Now this just plugs in directly underneath the rower. You'll see that there's a tiny little spot for that. And the other end you can plug directly into your wall. And that's how you assemble the Strong Series rower.